welcome into Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm your host, Michael Mercado, and I want to thank you so much for making us a part of your day. On today's show, we have the author of the very interesting book, Invisible Enemy. Faye Hueston joins us today on Outreach Radio Chicago. Just to give you a little information about her. In her thought-provoking book, Invisible Enemy, author Faye Hueston writes about her mysterious and debilitating illness, which after years of being dismissed as psychosomatic, or all in her mind, was finally diagnosed by a clinical doctor as a collapsed immune system due to pesticide poisoning, along with some other amazing stories that she talks about her experience with dealing with cancer, along with big pharma, and doing a natural cleanse and a natural remedy to help her cure her disease. It's a very interesting story, guys. You can find out more information at FayeHueston.com. That's FayeHueston.com. Or if you want more information about the book, you can go to InvisibleEnemy.net. Faye Hueston joins us in just one moment. You can follow me everywhere in the universe, guys. I'm on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like the page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. We're also on YouTube, so subscribe to me at Mike Mercado2333. We have really cool videos of reviews and other cool stuff outside of the Outreach Radio family. And on top of it all, we're on SoundCloud. So just search Michael Mercado and you can hear our beautiful show anytime you like. Faye Hueston joins us next on Outreach Radio Chicago. You can follow us everywhere in the universe. We're on Twitter at mmercado2333. Like the radio page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. Go to YouTube, subscribe to us so you can see really cool videos. We review things. We talk about wrestling and movies and music. We do all the fun stuff. Just subscribe at Mike Mercado 2333. And if you missed any past show, just search for us on SoundCloud. Just look up Michael Mercado. And on today's show, we teased it earlier. We have a very special guest. She's a world-renowned author, and she has an amazing story. And on today's show, we constantly want to give all of our audience members a resource so that they could do their own research and they could, make their own decision on things they want to, especially when it comes to what they do with their body. And that is such a big subject in today's world, where what's good for you, what isn't, what should you be taking, who you should be listening to. So on today's show, we bring in another great guest who's going to give us some awesome information. She is the author of Invisible Enemy. You can follow her on her website at FayeHueston.com. That's FayeHueston.com. Joining us today is Faye Hueston. Faye, how are you? Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, the reason I wrote my book, which is probably the best place to begin, is because I went through a very difficult health period, and I thought that if I was ever cured, I wanted to share what I had learned with other people who would probably experience the same sort of, if not exactly the same experience as mine, the same difficulty in finding a diagnosis. It took me 3 years and many doctors before I found out what was wrong with me. And I think that's an experience quite a few people have if they have an unusual if their symptoms are unusual. And then I finally found a therapy that it was totally nutritional, which brought me back to health. But it wasn't easy. It took 2 years, and it was very difficult. But I had at least I had no drugs and no poisonous side effects. In fact, I had to get the chemicals out of my system. That was my problem.
That's so crazy, because in today's day and age, where if you go on, you watch anything on television, and they always have a magic pill or something that's going to fix all your ailments, and you'll never have to worry about anything in your life. But what I find just remarkable is the idea of not being healthy, in the sense of, you're not feeling well and things are happening to your body, and the doctors and nobody can give you a straight answer. How terrifying is that as, an individual that I don't know what's wrong with me?
Well, it is. It's not knowing, which is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finally found out what was wrong, that I had pesticide poisoning, actually I had many more chemicals in my body than
Wow.
that, but it was primarily pesticides. And when I found that out, then I had to think, well, now what do I do? How do I get all these poisons out of my body? And you don't do it by adding more poisons in the form of drugs,
Right.
because drugs are toxic. And the trouble with so many of our problems, if we take a drug for this and a drug for that and a drug for something else, we don't know how these drugs interact inside our bodies, and they create a totally new kind of drug that nobody's been able to test. And I found that out when I used to take drugs. I try to avoid them now if I can. But anyway, it's difficult. But knowing what is wrong is the first step to curing it or to solving it.
Mm-hmm. And is that kind of where the title of Invisible Enemy came from? Is it just not knowing and just trying to fight this battle that you don't even know who you're going up against?
Well, I chose the title because chemicals, and we're surrounded by them in our environment, chemicals are the invisible enemy. When I went to doctors, they gave me every kind of test. I was tested for everything, and nothing showed up. So, of course, they told me it was all in my mind or it was psychosomatic. I knew it wasn't, but I couldn't prove what it was. And eventually, when I found out that it was chemicals, I realized that no wonder, it's very hard to find chemicals in the kind of normal tests that doctors do. But I went to a clinical ecology doctor, finally. I found one, and she knew exactly what to look for and the test to do. And it was a special test that, although I was living in England, the test was developed here in America, and she sent off for it here, and that was the beginning of my step back to health.
How upsetting is it when you know in your heart of hearts and you're living in it, it's in your body that something's not right, and you have these people who you're counting on to figure it out? Like, is it infuriating? Like, how upsetting is it? Like, it's one thing to be scared not knowing what's wrong, but it's also another thing when you know your body, you know how you feel, and they're still telling you no, it's all in your head. Is it as frustrating as anything you've ever experienced before?
Well, it is pretty frustrating. I don't want to knock doctors too much because they're not taught about environmental medicine, so to speak, in medical school. So, and a lot of them simply don't have the time to, learn about things that are outside of their general education. But it was frustrating. On the other hand, the problem with more people would know what to do in the situation that I was in if there wasn't such a concentrated effort to keep this knowledge unknown. I mean, it does compete with the drug industry, and what I have learned, and I don't know if there's time to go into it now, is that the minute you challenge the pharmaceutical industry, which is a billion-dollar monopoly, you are going to meet resistance, and you're going to meet lies and all sorts of things which are not easy for an alternative doctor to fight all by themselves, because most alternative doctors don't have the resources that huge chemical companies do have.
Now, I know you said whether or not we have enough time. I think one consistent thing that we've done here on Outreach Radio Chicago, on top of giving people a resource if they're looking for more research to do, is we're trained, especially here in the United States, and I don't know how it is across the pond, but specifically here in the United States, we're trained over years to say yes to the pill. Since the day you're born, you're just taught to yes to the ibuprofen, yes to the Vicodin, yes to whatever the case may be. Whether your kid can't pay attention or you have a headache, we've relied on the pill and just saying yes to the doctors. And it goes to your point. Some of them aren't trained or taught because of certain reasons. Now, bringing it to that, you've gone through all this. It's your body, and people are telling you left and right. And finally, you get to the point where, like, you're making progress, and then you learn that things that can help the people are being held back because it's being ran by a monopoly and big pharma. How upsetting is that for someone like you, who I'm sure you've met hundreds of people who have gone through, if not the same, very similar, or gone through horror stories of their own. How infuriating is that?
Well, it's I've met many people because I went to several clinics and met people who were going through the same thing I was going through. Their symptoms were different because the symptoms are not always the same. You can have 10 people who are affected by one thing, and yet we'll each have different symptoms because our bodies are different. But at least you learn that you have to get down to the cause, and pills are, we're conditioned to taking pills because it's so simple. Everyone would rather take a pill and get better than to have to do something that takes a lot of work. But pills do help with the symptoms, but they don't cure the basic problem, and that's what the therapy I did, which is called the Gerson therapy. It actually detoxifies the body and rebuilds the immune system. And that's what you have to do if you have chemical poisoning. There's no other way to get it out of your body. And the reason the Gerson therapy is in Mexico, which is unfortunate, is because the FDA does not allow anyone to try to cure cancer in this country through nutrition alone, even though there are no side effects with nutrition, organic nutrition. But we need to do a lot of thinking about, I think, the FDA and the power that it wields, which is, I think, way beyond what it was originally created to do, which was to check the purity of our foods, and it really wasn't meant to tell us what doctors we could see and what treatment we could or could not have.
And you brought up the treatment that you did to detoxify yourself and how it helped. Like you said, to get rid of chemicals in your body, you don't put chemicals back in. It's counter, intuitive. It doesn't make any sense. But in that same token, in 2010, you were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and you decided not to do chemotherapy. And what's the doctor's name? I don't want to butcher it. I want to make sure that he gets the proper credit. He's going through exactly what we're talking about right now, where he doesn't necessarily have the resources of billions of dollars like this big corporations do, and now he's got the thumb of not just companies but a whole state, a nation coming down on him.
Yes, his name is Dr. Stanislav Brzezinski, and he's in Texas. And, excuse me, he discovered something that he calls anti-neoplastons many years ago when he was at Baylor University, and which he found cured cancers that are supposedly incurable. And he developed his own medicine to counteract it, and found that he had amazing success with so-called terminal cancers. And originally, he was supported by the National Cancer Institute originally, and he went through 2 investigative new trials, had phenomenal success. It was limited to patients who had incurable brain cancers, and they had all first had to go through surgery, radiation, or chemotherapy before he could try to cure them. Well, by then the immune system is completely shattered. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing that anything could be done. But he managed to, cure about 116, I think, out of, I can't remember the total number. But then they told him he still had to have a third investigative new trial. Well, he couldn't afford that. The other 2 were paid by the National Cancer Institute, but he couldn't afford it, so he hasn't had a third trial. And unless he has a third investigative trial and passes it to their satisfaction, his treatment can't be had with insurance, which makes it terribly expensive, much more so than it would be. So and then he's been pursued. He's about to have, he has to go into another hearing for the Texas Medical Board, which is totally spurious. This is going to be next month. He's already had 2. Twice they've tried to put him in prison. Wow. So that they could actually, if they put him in prison, then they can have they can usurp, I suppose is the word, his discovery, which they can't do under prison circumstances. So he won both of those previous trials, which occurred over the past 20 years. He will, I'm sure, win this one. But the point of these, it isn't really to prove that he's done anything wrong, because he hasn't. It's to, to destroy him financially and in other ways so that he can't afford to continue practicing. And it's been a very difficult time, and this should not happen to someone who has proven. I mean, I'm just one example. I was cured of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but I caught it very early on, and I knew not to have. I knew that Dr. Brzezinski could cure things that were considered incurable because my best girlfriend was cured by him 20 years ago of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 4. So when I got it, fortunately early, I knew that this was the answer, and it was done very easily. And here I am.
Thankfully, here you are, and you're doing a battle that not a lot of people want to get ahead of. It's scary. It's a scary thing. I mean, you're seeing an example with the doc right down there in Texas that all he's trying to do is help people. And obviously, there's always a devil's advocate to everything. Somebody's always going to come up with a counterpoint. But I think the big thing that we're learning from today is we're so close. They're so close to really taking this disease and eradicating it and saving millions of lives. But bottom line is, until we get out of the mentality of it's all about the almighty dollar, it's not going to mean anything. It's not going to go anywhere. And for someone like you personally, when you see that you survived this, you had a friend survive this, and the doc has helped you do all this. I mean, this wasn't an easy journey to recovery, right? Like all of it has it all been, hard on you? Has it been, a testament to the strength that you were given? Like, talk to us about the recovery, and then on top of all that, the guy who helped save your life with all your hard work is now facing trouble.
Now, I do want to stress that I am really not a good example because I was caught so early that it doesn't matter. But I know people who, most people don't go to an alternative practitioner until they've been given a sentence of death. And when you know there's nothing else, then you start searching for anything. And there are a lot of people, there are some alternative therapies that are not as successful as others. And one has to be very careful and do their research. The difficult therapy for me was the first one I did, which made me learn so much. I was so glad that I did it because what I learned doing the Gerson therapy, which is harder, but I still think it's the best of all. But most people don't have the willpower or can't afford to. It's expensive because it involves a lot of organic food and vegetables and juices. So Dr. Brzezinski's, you can do his therapy with pills, but they are plant-based, the sort of thing that he has devolved to absolutely no side effects whatsoever. So for people who haven't got the perseverance or the ability to do the Gerson therapy, at least there's Dr. Brzezinski, and he's still practicing, although the FDA does not allow him to use his medicine, which proved so successful, because that threatens the whole gigantic cancer industry. But he uses another one which is almost as successful, and I think this is why they want to destroy him, because he still threatens the vast money.
Yeah, the companies that all have their strong grip on it, and it's very frustrating when you hear something like that, because at the end of the day, all that we all really care about is that maybe one day our loved ones, somebody we personally know, are going to go through something like this. I mean, the chances are they're there. I mean, it's going to happen, and the fact that this can happen, that people don't want it to succeed because it's going to make a billionaire lose X amount of money that they'll never see anyway, and it's just very infuriating. But for anybody who needs a resource or wants to do some research, I mean, it's a great place to start. It's FayeHueston.com. It's FayeHueston.com. Or especially for the book Invisible Enemy, I know a lot of you who listen to the show are always looking for good reading recommendations, especially from our guests. Just go to invisibleenemy.net. You can actually contact Faye there, and of course, if you go on the website, it's just a really good stuff, another great resource. And I have you for just a few more moments, but two things. One, I want to give you a little bit of time to talk about maybe the choice of medicine, being constitutionally protected, and on top of that, it's a mouthful question. I know it's hard to answer, but I ask anybody when we're doing a subject like this, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, will this disease not just with cancer in general, will we finally have this monster defeated?
I don't know. I just wish that we could have more freedom of medical choice. If we could completely choose whatever doctor and whatever treatment we want, I think cancer would not be as prevalent as it is now. There have been many people who have found cures for cancer, but each time, cures for cancer that don't involve drugs, but each time that person has been persecuted. Dr. Gerson was persecuted in his day. It's just unfortunate, but it's human nature. If someone threatens your livelihood and everything that you believed and taught and practiced in your life, well, of course you don't like it, and some people use means that aren't very nice. But I think if we all got together and demanded freedom of medical choice or freedom of information, there is, I think, a lot of information in my book, which I hope would be helpful to people. But I think we have to form, I'm going to put a petition for freedom of medical choice on my website. And I hope people, if they do agree that we do need this freedom, would be willing to sign it. And if we can get a critical mass, maybe we can force our people in Washington to do something about it.
Well, with people like you being ahead of these things and charging it, all we need, folks, is that you do the research, and if this is something that you believe in, help out the good people. This is a chance. Right now, we're at a crossroads where we're making differences in the world in so many different ways, and one of them should be how we are able to take our medicine. It's unbelievable that we do not have as many freedoms as we should when it's our own health. And a show like today really drives that home, and we have great guests. It's Faye Hueston. You go to FayeHueston.com, FayeHueston.com, and of course, InvisibleEnemy.net. Sign the petition. She's gonna have it up. Faye, we love what you're doing. We hope that you could come back and just give us updates for how everything is going, how you're doing, and just know that you have a home here on Outreach Radio Chicago.
How kind of you. Thank you so much.
It is my absolute pleasure. Faye Hueston, everybody, please make sure you go to her website, FayeHueston.com or InvisibleEnemy.net. Sign the petition, read the book, have a resource, guys. She's an amazing story, an amazing woman, and an amazing guest. Faye, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back on Outreach Radio Chicago. One last big thank you to Faye Hueston for joining us today. Please check out her two websites, FayeHueston.com, that's FayeHueston.com, or InvisibleEnemy.net. Check out the book, Invisible Enemy, and sign the petition if you believe, after listening to this show and reading the book, going on the websites, if that's something that you believe that the choices of what kind of medicine and healing that we decide to do, we should have that right. So it was a really interesting story. She's a really interesting lady. I hope you guys were able to get something out of the show. It's not easy. I know this is a very sensitive subject. We get that, and we try our best here on Outreach Radio Chicago to make sure that when we do these subjects that you have the resources and you're able to do the research yourself in case it's something that clicks something in the head. Because like she said, and we've discovered this on the show, we're so dependent on just saying yes to our doctors and taking pills and taking the easy way. But if there's a natural way of doing it, guys, maybe that's the way to go. I don't know the answers. I don't. One day, I hope I never have to go through something like that. I hope I hope none of you ever have to go through things like that. But until then, we have to make sure that we at least know and we're aware of things and educated the right way. But that'll do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on Outreach Radio Chicago. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at mmercado2333. Like the radio page on Facebook at Outreach Radio Chicago. We're on YouTube, so subscribe to us at Mike Mercado 2333. We have a lot of cool videos up there. I hope you guys enjoy those. And we're new to SoundCloud, so go ahead and just search up Michael Mercado, and you can see all our past episodes and interviews from Outreach Radio Chicago. One last thank you to Faye Hueston for joining us. FayeHueston.com, FayeHueston.com. And if you're interested in the book Invisible Enemy, just go to invisiblenemy.net. She'll also have a petition up there if you guys are interested to making it easier for you to make your own medicine and do your own treatments. Something very interesting and something we should all be looking into. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Thank you so much for listening to Outreach Radio Chicago. I'm Mike Mercado, and we will see you next time. Take us home, Hav. Hey everybody, Mike Mercado here from Outreach Radio Chicago, and I just want to thank you all for all the support you have given us on the brand new show. If someone you know wants to get the word out on a fundraiser, charity, or foundation in your local community, please send us an email at outreachradiochicago@gmail.com or send me one personally at mmercado@newswebradio.net. Or you can tweet me at mmercado2333, and don't forget to like our Facebook page at Outreach Radio Chicago. From right here at the studios, we'll see you next time on Outreach Radio Chicago.